The Four of Swords is known as truce, a word meaning a temporary agreement for the ceasing of conflict while some type of resolution or negotiation takes place. Here, that negotiation could be within that world of the mind of which we see up in the Suit of Swords. The Rider-Waite card shows a mournful image, resembling an effigy in a church, often of a knight or of somebody of importance. Their hands are clasped in the praying position, representing a type of rest and also a hope for rebirth or renewal in time. The fact that the remaining 3 swords of which are not on the tomb point down towards this figure, however, suggest a type of conflict and a stasis where there is no fighting for the time being, but who knows how long this may last. Over on the Tree of Life we are in Chesed, and here we are reminded of Chesed as a type of virtue in itself. It's often translated as loving kindness, for example, and the emotive and merciful aspects of the mind. There's a concept known as tikkun olam, of which means literally repairing of the world. And this is connected with Chesed as a type of virtue, so tikkun olam, to repair the world, is metaphysical. It means to instill the world with the qualities of God, and therefore allow in the divine light, therefore healing, spiritually enlightening, and bringing peace, joy and charity back into the world. And so because we're in that world of Yetzirah, the world of formation, Chesed in Yetzirah can be tikkun olam. It's saying there's a need, a requirement to repair something in a mystical sense, to hold back and to allow a healing, if you like, in that respect to take place. Astrologically, we are Jupiter in Libra, and this again refers to that exact same concept. So Libra is asking for balance, of course, and Jupiter is about bringing expansion and abundance, and also good fortune and prosperity. And so to practice that tikkun olam, we find balance in the world. We are mortal beings with immortal spirits. We're spirits having a human experience, that type of thing. And so we're to use our expansive mind and the power of our consciousness to resolve the conflicts of which show up around us in the world, and that is how we move on from them rather than being imprisoned by them. And so the fact that this card is number 4 is that you're going into a period of stability where you can stand firm and decide to move on. We understand that it's only a temporary rest, and so we have to kind of gather our thoughts together and figure out where we need to go from here. And that's why you can see these chaotic yellow lines and shapes in the background of the card. They resemble these type of images that allegedly show brain activity and that type of thing. And that's actually exactly what they are. The yellow is air, and that constant movement of air. And also it represents the constant movement of thought. And so this is like our brain, or certainly our mind, if not the physical brain. It's all those different thoughts going through our heads and the different conflicts that are happening in our lives. Relationships, money, worries, health, that type of thing, and indecisiveness. We don't know where to go, and we tie ourselves up in knots, such as shown in the picture. And the swords here are those aspects of us that are fighting against the different ways to go, and we've decided that there needs to be a truce. We're driving ourselves mad with this chaos, and so we need to take a step back. And so the swords have formed themselves into this cross, and it is the cross of Saint Andrew, otherwise known as the Crux Decussata. The X-shaped cross is that of which Saint Andrew chose to be crucified on, because he thought he was unworthy to be crucified on the same type of cross as what Jesus had been crucified on. And here it is coloured in green, of which brings us back to Libra and its ruler, that of Venus. And so through Libra here, the energy of Venus manifests as a desire for balance and compromise. And of course the cross itself is one of total balance. It meets in the centre and is perfectly balanced with itself. We could also see something of a desire for a type of social order and a fairness going on here, because Libra is interested in ideals, in pointing out those injustices and saying what is fair, returning us there to St. Andrew and his idea of being crucified separately in that respect to Jesus. In the centre of the cross, all of the swords point in towards this beautiful rose, of which has upon it 49 petals. This is of particular interest. In the most simple manner, it is a type of balance and harmony because it's 7 times 7, so we have that duality and that perfect balance with Libra. And more metaphysically, it represents a in-between state, of which is the state of the truce. It is said that the Buddha meditated for 49 days and nights, and also 49 days in Buddhism is the length of an intermediate state such as the bardo, of which is a state between death and rebirth. This is a concept of which we see in many different religions and metaphysical beliefs. Of course, you may be thinking about purgatory, for example, the Catholic teaching that those of whom die in grace with God but are just imperfect undergo a type of purification, a rest period before moving on. And it's also sometimes known as limbo, a state in between one thing or another. They wait in limbo until salvation finds them. The idea with the bardo in Buddhism, and here connected to the card, is consciousness free of the physical body, but before it has been reborn. And so if we return to the Rider-Waite card, we can actually see that, and we have the effigy showing the knight in that state of prayer. His battles are done temporarily, because his life is over, his consciousness continues, it is forever, it is immortal. And yet, he has not yet been reborn. When he becomes reborn, he will enter again into a world where there is conflict, there is time, there is death. But within that state in between, there is a peace, there is a release from those things. And so we've brought in here our swords to the very centre of this bardo, of this intermediate state, and it is the liminal point in between the two points of the St. Andrew's cross coming together. So it is that state of neither one thing or another. That's the point of meditation where enlightenment takes place. We can also see on the swords themselves, it's quite difficult to see on the images, but they have different lines upon them, such as wavy lines and circles, and these are the 4 elements of air, water, fire and earth. And so it represents all of the physical world coming together, and most importantly, the actual points of the sword are not visible. They are within the rose. They have actually gone behind it, or certainly they are hidden because of it. And so this shows that all of the things in that physical world, all of the sorrows and of the conflicts of which led us to require this truce in the first place, are suspended within the petals of this rose, suspended in that limbo, that intermediate state. But they can't stay there forever. There will come a time when they have to be pulled back out or move on to do something else, otherwise they shall rust and go away. In the background of the card we can see the answer to this quandary, in that it has a deep blue in the background coming through. This is the energy of Jupiter, which we saw earlier, asking us to expand our consciousness. So when the swords are removed and the truce is ended, it's saying, well, don't just go straight back to what you had before with the conflict. Use that chance that you have to expand your consciousness and to see things better, to look at things with a perspective. If we're down in the forest, the trees look huge and overpowering. If we flew high above them in an aeroplane, they would only look tiny. It's just a matter of perspective. And so that doesn't mean that when we end the truce, it's all going to be plain sailing, but it certainly means that we will have a better perspective to know where we are going. And so when you draw the card, it's saying you do need to step back. You can't just stay in this state, whatever it is, forever, because it will destroy you. Step back, go away perhaps. In reality, in our actual lives, we could have a holiday, or we could have a weekend in bed, and just recharge our energy, and it's not going to make things go away, but it's going to get us out of the position that we're in temporarily, so that we can look at it with a fresh set of eyes, so that we can get a new perspective on it. And when we come back from that holiday, we may find that those things that were causing us issue probably weren't that stressful to begin with. It still might not be resolved. There's still certainly going to be some work to do. But our intuition has returned to us during that space of respite. And then, after rest, we know where we are going.